Have you ever been due to give a speech or a presentation at work which was really important, and you feel this lack of confidence before you give the speech and when you get up to give the speech? If you have, welcome to the club. If you're shy, introverted, or really not very outgoing, this sort of situation is going to make you feel very anxious. And 75% of people around the world suffer with speech anxiety. It's quite common, and a lack of confidence before giving a speech can actually ruin the speech when you deliver it. So what are some tips, what are some ways that we can build up our confidence before we get on stage and give our speech? Well, this video is all about actionable tips, things you can do, even if you don't give speeches regularly, even if this is maybe your first ever speech and you are feeling nervous about doing it. This video is going to help you to build your confidence so that you can deliver a great speech, even if it's your first time. If you're feeling a lack of confidence before giving your speech, you're probably experiencing speech anxiety. Speech anxiety can happen before you give a speech, during your speech, and even sometimes afterwards, with negative thoughts about how it went. As someone who has dealt all of his life with speech anxiety, I can tell you that this can really ruin your confidence, but it doesn't have to. First of all, I want to share a resource with you to help you to build your confidence before getting on stage. And one of those things is this resource. It's called my Speech Anxiety Cheat Sheet. It's a cheat sheet because it gives you the code to unlock your anxiety and give you the confidence to be able to present your material the way you want to. You can go to www.thehifeonspeakersacademy.com/speech-anxiety or click the link in the description below to get your cheat sheet. You can keep it on you. Download it as a PDF, print it off if you'd like to have paper copies of things, and go over it before you give your speech. Have it on you before you get up to the podium so you can remind yourself of some of the advice that's in there to help you overcome anxiety. Speech anxiety, as we said, is very common. And what you need to understand is it comes from a place of insecurity, your personal insecurities. You have a negative self-image about yourself. That's what a self-image is. So you have this negative self-image and you need to replace that with a positive one. That's where visualization comes in. We'll talk about some other ways you can prepare to give your speech, but to handle speech anxiety, you need to replace that negative image of yourself with a positive one. Professional athletes do this and professional speakers do this. They will imagine themselves giving that speech. And when they give it, it goes really well. They will imagine getting off to rapturous applause because visualizing yourself doing something and doing it well helps replace that negative image. Now, this is going to take some effort because your brain naturally will want to go somewhere negative, but it's fine. Replace that negative image with a positive one, and it will help you to start to overcome speech anxiety. There are some other really helpful ways to conquer speech anxiety. For example, you can prepare your material, which we'll come on to as a way to build your confidence in a little while. You also can imagine your audience. Think of them, the people who will be there. They're there because they actually want to hear what you have to say. They're not there to judge you. That comes from our insecurities, the fear of being judged. They're not there to do that. They're there to listen, to learn, to gain something from what you've prepared for them. So you can do that. Imagine them as on your side rather than against you. And if you would like more help with speech anxiety, click the video up here, which will take you to our entire video I did on speech anxiety with 7 tips, I think it is, that can help you to overcome it. We said a moment ago that we need to prepare. It's a great way to help overcome our anxiety. But on top of that, preparation helps us to build up our confidence. See, our confidence comes from that insecurity of feeling like we have nothing to say, we don't know what we're talking about, and that we're just going to fumble all over the place because it won't come out properly. Well, if we take the time to actually prepare what we're going to say, well, then we can counteract that negative insecurity about ourselves, raising our confidence in the meantime. So we can build our confidence through preparation. Now, how do we prepare for a speech? Well, it starts with research. You may know about the topic you're speaking about. If it's a wedding, then you know about the people who you've been asked to give the speech for. If it's a work presentation, you know your business. You know what's going on in work and what the people in the audience want to know from you. If you're given a speech at a conference, well, then they'll probably give you a theme to speak about. And it's probably something aligned with what you generally know as your knowledge. But take some more time to research more thoroughly about the topic which you'll be speaking about. Then put it down on paper. Write down an outline, beginning, middle, and end. Very simple. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. You haven't got to have some sort of crazy 20-part symposium. No, we keep it simple. Beginning, middle, end. No more than 3 main key takeaway points in the middle section, because that helps you to expand on what you need to expand on and conclude with a nice summary of those 3 points, and will help the audience to take away the 3 points that you have prepared. Keep it simple, structure it on a piece of paper, and then don't necessarily script every single word you're going to say, although sometimes that can be useful, especially if it's a speech that you may want to reuse in the future, because you'll come to the future and you will have forgotten what you wanted to say if you've only got bullet points, and you'll have to relearn it all again. But just jot down your thoughts. Bullet points are great, expounding on what you are going to say. And once you have your speech written, stand in front of a mirror and give your speech as if you are actually giving it in the room to the audience. Because when we practice, we reinforce what we're going to say. Part of us building our confidence is being familiar with our material. If we're not familiar, we're going to be nervous about what comes next, and it's only going to make us feel less confident. We're trying to do the opposite. So preparation is key. Don't overdo it to the point where it becomes a written, scripted, memorized speech, but just be really familiar with your material so that you can then ad-lib on top of it and give your audience everything that you have prepared. We mentioned a moment ago about practicing, but I want to give you some techniques that you can use to really enhance those practice sessions. It's all about rehearsals. If you've ever been to a set of a band that you wanted to see or a comedian, everything is staged. Nothing really is ad-libbed, because that's not how these things work. Can you imagine the lack of confidence that musician would have if he put a joke in but didn't know if it was any good? Same with a comedian. They don't wing it, because winging it doesn't really work. And you can end up destroying what confidence you have by trying to wing your way through your speech. So don't do that. Instead, rehearse. Stand in front of a mirror, like we said, or use your phone so you can watch it back. Find out what you think really works. You'll know if you're bored listening to yourself back, you know that your audience will probably be bored too. So don't bore them. Instead, get up, practice, and figure out what works and what doesn't. You could practice in front of somebody you know, a friend, a colleague, someone you trust to give you good feedback. And then they can help you to understand, this really worked. I love that point. I was a bit confused here. I do that with my wife. She's very helpful. She always tells me if there's something I should change. Something else which I talk about a lot in my videos but is really helpful is breathing. Controlled breathing. And it starts in our rehearsal. You need your first words to come out exactly how you plan them to be. You see, when you stand there on the stage, your confidence is teetering on the edge of being confident and it all falling apart. It all comes down to that opening line that you deliver. So how are you going to make sure your opening line is really good? Practice it. Get to the podium if you're speaking from a podium, or get in front of the microphone, or wherever you're speaking from. Get to the front. Take a moment to breathe and then start. Because I've said before, if you get to the front of the stage, if you get to the podium, if you start talking, then off you go. You say your first line, you've just sort of run up there and you started speaking and speaking. You're a moving train and the audience has got to catch up with you and you won't be able to slow down. So you're more likely to fumble over what you're going to say and is more likely to become a disaster. If you take a moment to take a breath, it feels like forever when you get to the front and you wait a second and take a deep breath. It feels like 30 seconds have passed, but in reality, it's probably only 2. But give yourself that time, because that, like I said, is the teeter point of confidence and lack of confidence through the rest of your speech. So give yourself the grace of a couple of seconds to take a deep breath. One of the things that happens when we lack confidence is we tend to move inwardly. We don't feel comfortable to move our hands. We sort of stand like this, or we grip the podium. And we look down at our notes, and we don't really look up. We feel like we're looking up, but we're really going like this. We don't want to look at anybody. We don't want to move. We don't do anything. And instead, we stand there almost rigid like a statue. If you've ever looked at a statue, they're not particularly interesting. And the same is true for you. So if you want to give a great speech, you need to practice your movements. Body language, gestures, eye contact, all of these are really useful tips and tricks to be able to engage with your audience, to connect with them, but on top of that, to make yourself feel more confident. A confident person isn't even aware of their gestures. I am now, but I wasn't a moment ago. You just move. You move how you always would. Your face moves, your arms move, your hands move. You don't really think about it. But if you're lacking confidence, you're aware of every movement, and in your movements, you feel like you're going like this, but in reality, you're doing this. And that is kind of boring. If we don't actually move, if I didn't move in this video, you would get bored. You'd want to turn it off. So you've got to move. You've got to practice making eye contact. Again, the mirror comes in. Because if you can look yourself in the eye, you'll find it easier to look other people in the eye. So practice your movements, practice your body language, your gestures, your eye contact, because this will help you deeply engage with the people that you're speaking to. The final point that I want to give you, the final bit of advice, is that confidence comes from experience. Nobody is ever confident really on their first attempt. If they are, it's normally foolhardy because they're ignoring or they don't know or their mind hasn't gone to the things that could happen. See, the problem with being introverted, shy and not outgoing is in our minds, we do all the thinking. We think too much about what could go wrong, whereas people who are overconfident, they're not thinking about any of that. They're just plowing into it. But that could destroy your confidence. We have to replace the negative self-image. And if you are overconfident, well, then you still need to do all of these things because there's no point being overconfident and unprepared. You have to build your confidence through trial and error. You can use these tips to build up the confidence you have. You will still feel nervous when you get on stage. That's okay. You are going to accept that. Accept that there are nerves involved in standing up in front of a group of people and presenting some sort of information. That's okay. We can deal with that. But we will build our confidence through practicing it, through delivering it, and then rinsing and repeating and getting up on stage and doing it again. And eventually, if you do it enough, you will have confidence in yourself to be able to deliver the material that you want to give to people, the advice, the message, whatever it is. Practice makes progress. You have to do it to be able to build confidence, proper confidence. And the people you see who seem to have bags of it, it's because they spent time building it. You have to earn your confidence, unfortunately, especially if you are shy. But use the tips in this video. Have a look through at some of my other videos because there's lots of tips there. And pick something. This is the other thing. You have to pick an area to work on and then work on it. And work on it again until it becomes almost natural. And then pick another area and work on that and work on it again until you become a complete speaker. But to be fair, there's always something to be working on. For me, I'm always working on something. Picking an area that I want to do better in and doing better at it. That builds my confidence. And it can be true for you. I really hope you found this video useful. If you have, please click the like button, click the subscribe button for more tips to help build your confidence, and I'll talk to you soon.